been in New York since the 1400s, 1700s. They've been there so long, and they want to maintain a history because we all know.
They can't hear you in the live,
Okay,
so you can use the microphone.
they all know.
Oh, there's a mic
There
right
is a
there.
mic right there.
Okay, okay, right here. So many of us know that we're going through gentrification within our communities. If regardless, right now, the biggest thing right now is Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta, Georgia. You think right now that place would never be gentrified, but now Atlanta is becoming more and more gentrified. Where they pushing out many of the black population, black people that have been there for a long time. You know, even going back to not just Dr. Martin Luther King, but Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. and also Alberta King, where her father started that church. But one thing I'm really, what was really within my soul is to tell a story. You know, everywhere I go, if it's New Jersey, if it's New York, if it's Connecticut, Boston, I see our history within the story. So within Baraka and Leah, as they go through their journey of trying to create their own family, they also talk about their history. They talk about their culture. They talk about who they are. So they have romance, but it's a deeper sense within their spirituality. Their romance has a strong indication of their spirituality. So as the reader reads it, you'll learn more about it. You'll learn about the experiences of who we are and why we're so essential to the universe, you know, and the power of love, the power of black love, the power of the universal black love. And one thing that I've said over and over, the power of the universal black wound of the black woman, you know, it was created by Most High God. And that must be protected within the story. So I talk about that. Her desire to have a family, desire to maintain her strength. But that doesn't mean because she doesn't become a mother, she will become a mother if she's not a woman. But she goes through the journey of questioning life, questioning as she's a young woman, with a husband, would he stay? She began to question the things that she learned about him before they got married. Baraka was very charismatic, very charming. Now she's starting to question, is he out there when I don't see him? So when the mind wanders, it goes to different places. When you're in pain, you go through different places. But also as a happiness, as a joy. I'm a writer by nature, so I'm always gonna tell the story of people and make them understand a deeper meaning of their spirituality, of their purpose. So that's one thing that I want to always mention to the audience. So you have a question you have about the book, why I wrote it, or
Yeah, what was the inspiration?
I think my inspiration. So I live in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm from New Jersey, but I live in Hartford, Connecticut. And I had a friend. She she was telling me that she was going through. She had stomach problems. She couldn't figure out why she was having problems. You know, with her stomach, and she couldn't figure out why she was not feeling well. And then one day after I left the hospital, she told me, she said, Paul, that's my birth name. I had a miscarriage. And I was hurt for it, I was sad for it. But I told her, one day you will have a daughter. One day you have a child. I didn't say daughter, but I said you're gonna have a child. And when I spoke to her years later, after not speaking to her, she had a daughter. So that right there, then my desire to tell stories, I began to go to theater school and drama class in New York, the school in Manhattan. So I began to write my story about a couple trying to find their way after losing a miscarriage. It started off as a short story, but it became a novel. So I see when I write, I don't just see words. I visualize them. I see them as the movie. You know, I captivate my audience like it's a movie as they read the book. I grab you in slowly, then I welcome you in. So that's my motivation to never give up on love, never give up on yourself, never give up on what is your purpose. Your purpose is not just to have a child, but the purpose within your soul, your relationship within the Most High.
Are the names of the characters inspired by?
So Baraka is by Mamiya Baraka. I'm originally from Newark, New Jersey, so I had a chance to see him, and I went to his memorial. I met his family, so it's based on my. He's one of the greatest poets to ever live. So it's based on Baraka. Got the name Baraka from him, and Leah is a Kemetic word for moon. It's a Kemetic name for moon. You know, as Ra, and then you have Leah. So it's based on those elements of spirituality and a very a hero of mine, someone I look up to, being from New Jersey, being a black man. So yeah, that's what the characters are based on.
And where was I see their son was named Matulu.
Yeah, Matula. So that
Did
that's
they discuss their like naming ceremony?
so what they what they do. What I say within the story, that's if you read the story, that's the son that they lost. So that they named him, but they didn't really get a chance to have that ceremony because of his passing. And then the story begins to really it begins to go deeper into why and question, can his love affair, can a spirituality within a love, can it last? And they have to find they find so Baraka by trade is he's a photographer, he's a sculptor, and Leah, she's a fashion designer. And my niece Leah, is a fashion designer. So I mix fiction with actual stories. And me being an artist myself, I always want to mix the art within people's life story.
Is this your first?
No, my this is my second book. My first book is called Genocide of Hip Hop, and the book was written in 2012. It's written in 2012. It's based in is so the book Genocide of Hip Hop was written in 2012. It started in 2006, and I always when I lived in multiple places. Like I said before, I lived in North Carolina. And my teacher said to me when I was 17 years old, said to the class, "What do you see yourself doing 10 years from now?" And I was 17, and I just used my imagination and I wrote down, I want to write a book. So I started to write my first book. Or I started writing a little poetry, then I started a little short story, then another short story, and I combined them together to write my book Genocide of Hip Hop. And I was always curious about the Newark riots of 1967, started with John W. Smith. So I began to learn. I began to go to the library. I began to ask family members. That was at that time. So the Newark Rebellion, 1967, started in the Century Ward in Newark, New Jersey, and Little Brick Projects, where my mother grew up at, and in Newark was right there at Century Ward. And I remember when I was 6 years old, 7 years old, I would see all these burnt down buildings in New Jersey, and I would say, "Mom, why is so many burnt down buildings in Newark?" And I guess the pain took her from not saying anything, so she said, "One day I will, son. One day I will." But the pain was too hard for her. And then we lived in other places, we traveled to other places, and but it always brought my heart and my soul always brought me back to Newark. So I began to research the Newark Rebellion of 1967. I began to learn about it started one way because John W. Smith, the rebellion because he was assaulted by the Newark Police Department, but it was a deeper meaning. Many people think that if you go back to the 60s, it was only the South that was going through the struggle, but black people as a whole was going through the struggle. Chicago and Indiana, Los Angeles, wherever we was at, we were struggling, and we may have not been in a place where it was black and white signs, but it was also but it was silent. It was a silent discord within our community. So through John W. Smith, through John W. Smith assault, it began to uncover the many discriminations that was going on in Newark, where black people that was qualified for jobs was not qualified. Many people that owned the businesses were not giving the jobs to eligible black people. And then the many of the projects and many of the communities was gentrified even then, where only black people lived in this community, only white people lived in this community, and it began to be zoned where opportunities was not always given to the right qualified people. So that right there, the Newark Rebellion, people began to rebel. They began to riot. They began to do everything they could to fight. And then I moved on, and the main characters were Jacqueline, and it was Thomas. Jacqueline was born in Newark, New Jersey, and Thomas grew up in the Bronx, New York. His family came from Money, Mississippi, so I always use elements of it. Like coming from North Carolina, my family is originally from Kings Mountain, so I use Kings Mountain, Money, Mississippi. That goes back to Emmett Till. So I use and I tell the stories. So Thomas' mother was and father was from Money, Mississippi, and when Thomas was younger, he was, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. She said, watch what you do, son, because she knew what happened. She knew what happened to Emmett Till. But Thomas was a revolutionary by heart, so he joined the Black Panther Party, and Jacqueline was an educator by heart, so she went to Howard University, and at 16 years old, graduated a year earlier, and then but they found each other. Thomas was in a place of he was in a place where he was incarcerated unjustly because he was a Panther. And he was a poet, he was a writer, and that's where the Raleigh and Howard University they found each other. They found the kinship because they both experienced adversity within their lives. But within that, they gave birth to a son named Raheem. And Raheem, that he went through adversity because his father passed away. Because his father, it was certain things that happened where the father, I'm gonna be blunt, his father, even when he left prison, they put drugs in his system that affected his white blood cells. And that affected his white blood cells where it began to affect his immune system. He had another child with his wife, Jacqueline, but then he passes away. So the things that his father Thomas turned to Malachi. He changed his name to Thomas to Malachi, and you know his children, Raheem, Rahima. He wanted them to have conscious names, but names with meaning. So he named his children those names, but then he lost his life in the struggle of life. And he, the, Thomas was against, Malachi was against drugs, prostitution, but his son growing up in Newark began to be drawn to those things. He began to be drawn to the streets. So he became a big time drug dealer. The things that his father despised, now he became that person. And he lost his way trying to find who he truly was. And guess who one day in the midst of his struggle, guess what happened? He found a love of his life. I'm a lover by heart. He found someone named Nzinga. And that goes, so I named her Nzinga because the great queen Nzinga, one of my heroes, one of my sheroes. And I say that because male, female, she was one of the greatest revolutionaries that the world ever produced. So I named her Nzinga, and Nzinga was powerful. She was strong. And when he first met her, he wasn't in a good place, but he moved away for a second to get back. He met her in Philadelphia, and he had to come back in a right state of mind. So he found her. But in the midst of that, he still was in and out of the streets. His homies passed away, so he had to go back to Newark. He had to fight his demons and the streets. But he found out that many of the things that was keeping Newark down was the government. They was pinning people against each other, gangs against each other. And he had to learn that for himself. But then he had to find his way back to love. And that's the mystery of the story. But back to Mentally Loving You, Searching for the Balance Mayat, it deals with history, it deals with culture, it deals with Black love. It has a great meaning where when you read it, you learn, but you also enjoy the ride of reading. It took me 6 years to write this story, but it was a 6 year journey that I went on. And I think when you write, when you become a poet and when you become an author, you feel each and every character. I bring them to life because they are part of your own experience, figuratively or literally.
Thank you for that answer. I actually have an appointment to get to,
Okay.
but I'm wishing you all the luck.
All right.